So this happened just 2 nights ago, and honestly, I'm still trying to shake it off. It was around 12:45 in the morning, and I was wrapping up some work in my bedroom where my desktop is set up. My husband had already gone to bed around 9, but being the sweetheart that he is, he offered to crash in the guest room so I could keep working without disturbing him. He usually takes our dog with him when he does that. So imagine my surprise when I turn off the lights and see our dog crawl out from the other side of the bed, stretch like she owns the place, and walk over to me. It was exactly 1 a.m. I figured I'd let her out real quick to go to the bathroom. She's older and has a habit of waking us up at 3 a.m. if we don't get ahead of it. I flipped on the patio light and let her out. From the window, I watched her trot off into the yard, tail wagging like she'd just spotted someone she knew. Her whole posture shifted, focused, ears perked. Then she crept just out of view. And that's when I felt it, that weird, heavy sense of dread. My stomach dropped. I panicked. I yanked the door open and called out her name. That's when I heard it. A man's voice. I don't know what he said because truthfully, I was too scared to focus. My dog didn't come running back immediately. She looked at me, then back at whoever was out there. I followed her gaze, and that's when I noticed someone had stacked pillows and a blanket on top of our grill. Definitely not ours. I screamed for my dog, louder this time, and she finally came. I slammed the door shut, heart pounding, and bolted to the other side of the house to wake up my husband. I'm shouting, practically shaking him, telling him someone's on our porch. He's groggy and in disbelief, but gets up, walks to the patio door from the kitchen, and opens it. And there he was. A guy, probably in his early 20s, sitting calmly against the wall of our house, barefoot, right along the same wall where the bedroom patio door is, which is why I hadn't seen him before. My husband, trying to stay calm, asks if he's okay. I couldn't hear what the guy said, but my husband told him he was at the wrong house and needed to leave. We were both rattled. My husband went to the safe and grabbed our handgun. We live in a relatively safe neighborhood, no crime to speak of, so this was completely out of the blue. We were trying to stay rational, but the nerves were real. When we went back to the living room, the guy had moved. Now he was just sitting in one of our patio chairs like he belonged there. My husband shouted at him, light from the handgun cutting through the dark, telling him to leave. Meanwhile, I called the police. By the time they showed up, he was gone. But his bedding, the pillows, the blanket, were still there. One of the officers recognized the description. He told us the guy had likely just had a psychotic episode. Apparently, he lives nearby and had gone off his bipolar meds. He'd had another similar incident earlier that week. And honestly, I get it. Mental illness is something we're not strangers to. I felt awful calling the cops and waving a weapon around, but at the same time, he was on our property, in the dark, with our dog. I'm a woman in my 20s, small frame, living in a modest condo. That fear, it wasn't abstract. It was very real. And it didn't stop there. I live alone with my cat on the second floor of an apartment building I moved into a few months ago. To get into my unit, someone has to pass through 2 doors. The first is the external door into the building, which has 1 lock. The second is my actual apartment door, which has a regular lock and a deadbolt. Only tenants have keys to the external door, and everyone else has to be buzzed in. My side of the building is quiet. There are 8 apartments per building, and mine is tucked at the back. The unit below me is vacant, and the only neighbor I really know is a girl my age who lives to the left. She's usually not home, often staying over at her boyfriend's. So while I have neighbors, my unit feels a little isolated. The light outside the building entrance had burned out recently. I meant to report it, but I kept forgetting. That Friday night, around 10 p.m., I was winding down, running the dishwasher, folding laundry, and working on a report at my kitchen counter. My cat was trailing me, like always. That's when I first heard it. A soft, repetitive rustling noise coming from outside. Not loud, not urgent, just weird. Still, I chalked it up to the wind, maybe a stray animal. I didn't check. I'm a naturally anxious person, and it was dark. I didn't want to spook myself. Later, while working at the kitchen counter, I heard a knock on the door. Light. Quick. I froze. My cat bolted for the bedroom. I paused, waited. Another knock. Slightly louder. Faster. My skin crawled. It was late. I wasn't expecting anyone. I quietly crept to the door and peeked through the peehole. There was a man standing there. Tall. Wearing a dark jacket, maybe black or navy. Caucasian, dark hair. I'd never seen him before, and he was close, way too close. His face was almost pressed to the peehole. He wasn't just standing, he was leaning in, staring, like he was waiting to hear movement. Something about his energy was off. My gut screamed, "Don't open the door." So I backed away, slowly, carefully. He stood there a while longer, maybe a minute or two. Then I heard the creak of the stairs as he went down and out the building's main door. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a neighbor locked out. Maybe he mistook my unit for someone else's. But it didn't feel that way. The way he stood there, too close, too quiet, wasn't right. I texted my mom and a friend. My friend offered to come over, but I said I was fine. I'd talked myself down by then. And then came the next morning.
So the next morning rolls around. It's early, around 7:30 a.m., and my mom and her boyfriend were picking me up to go yard sale hopping. Totally normal Saturday morning plans. She calls to say she's outside, and I grab my bag and head downstairs. As soon as I open the external door to my building, I know something's not right. The handle? It turns way too easily. The whole thing just feels loose. I shut the door behind me like I normally would, and boom, the outside part of the handle just falls out. I wish I had taken a picture of it because it's hard to explain, but it was completely tampered with. That outside portion, the part held in with screws, gone. The keyhole? Missing. There was literally just a hole in the middle where the lock mechanism should be. And I checked the grass and sidewalk outside. Nothing. Whoever messed with it had taken the parts with them. I stood there frozen for a second, that awful feeling creeping back. It wasn't just the weird guy at my door last night. Someone had tried to get in, tried hard enough to rip the lock out. And what's worse, nobody else heard anything. No one saw anything. My mom wasn't having it. After hearing about the knocking incident the night before and now this, she insisted I report it. So I called maintenance and the police. But honestly, what could they really do? There were no cameras on that side of the building, definitely none near my door. When I spoke with the neighbors afterward, those who were home anyway, none of them had heard any knocking. No one else had seen the man I described. It felt targeted, not random. Like someone knew I lived there, knew I was alone. The door handle got fixed that same afternoon, but mentally, I haven't really shaken it since. And then, there's this story. When I was 18, my boyfriend Jake, he was 21 at the time, and I decided to take a spontaneous road trip to Canada. We lived just a few hours away and thought it'd be fun to go bar hopping in a new city. We found a hotel, dropped our stuff, and went out for drinks. After the first bar, we were walking down the street chatting when this guy, big puffy coat, friendly energy, comes up and introduces himself as Ian. He overheard us speaking English and struck up a conversation. Said he was from not too far from our area, which made it feel a little more familiar. He invited us to hang out, maybe hit a few bars together. We thought, why not? We met up with two of his friends, ended up in a strip club of all places, and Ian paid for everything. Cover, drinks, all of it, with this massive wad of cash. I mean thick. The kind of money that makes you ask, what do you do? Later, we started talking about weed, and Ian casually invited us back to his hotel to smoke. I wasn't feeling well by that point, too much to drink, so after one puff, I was sick in the bathroom. Jake, thankfully, wasn't as buzzed. We didn't stay long and eventually made our way back to our hotel. The next morning, we're heading to our car to leave when bam, we hear our names being called. It's Ian. What the odds, right? He says it's crazy we ran into each other again and invites us to go smoke at his friend's place. Against better judgment, We went. The place? Sketchy. Run down. Totally not the kind of place I wanted to be in. While we were there, the conversation took a dark turn. Ian started dropping hints about how he makes so much money without really working. The vibe got real shady. He never outright said it, but it was clear. He was involved in drug smuggling, maybe even across the border. Then he looked at me, dead serious, and said I could make good money doing it too. My heart sank. I immediately felt unsafe. I wanted out. Jake picked up on it too. We tried to play it off casually, like, haha, yeah, maybe, but Ian's friends started suggesting how I could do it, talking about where I could hide stuff. It wasn't a joke. Not at all. We eventually said our goodbyes. Jake gave Ian his real number, which to this day I don't understand why he did, and we headed home. As we drove off, guess what? Ian's car is right behind us. We turned. He turned. We took another random road. He followed. We even got a little lost, and he was still there. Finally, after a few more sketchy turns, we lost him. We crossed the border, and thank God we never saw him again. But that feeling in the pit of my stomach, that something is really wrong feeling, it stayed with me the entire ride home. A week or so later, Ian tried calling Jake. We never picked up. To this day, I have no idea how bad that situation could have gotten, but I know, with every gut feeling I've ever had, it wouldn't have been good. Sometimes your instincts are the only alarm system you've got. And here's another time when mine kicked in. I was visiting my 6-year-old nephew in California. He's on the spectrum and nonverbal, and we decided to go play at the park. We've been to this park a bunch of times before. It's usually quiet and safe. We got there, and my nephew ran off toward this tree away from the main playground. I followed him, helped him climb onto a low branch, and he was just sitting there, happy as could be. That's when I heard a voice behind me, asking me, "Can I ask you a question?" I didn't think much of it, didn't even realize it was directed at me, but then I saw her. A woman, maybe in her late 20s or early 30s in sweatpants and a hoodie, walking towards us with her hands in her pockets and a backpack on. Then she shouted, "Put your hands where I can see them." Now, I didn't see a police car, no badge, nothing to even suggest she was a cop, just a stranger walking towards us aggressively. And we were alone, far from the playground. I grabbed my nephew, he didn't want to be picked up, and started walking quickly towards where there were other people. She followed us fast, asking questions like, "Is that your brother? And why are you holding him like that?" I was panicking. I'm a short guy, not very intimidating, and my nephew was on the verge of a meltdown. Her hand stayed in her pocket, and honestly, I've seen enough crime shows to know that's a red flag. So I lied. I pointed to a couple on the bench and said, "Those are his parents," just hoping she'd back off. She started shouting at them, accusing me of ignoring her. Luckily, the couple played it cool, told her they'd keep an eye on us. I quickly explained to them what was going on, that I'm the uncle to the kid and he's on the spectrum. The woman nodded in understanding. She had a neighbor with autism and seemed to get it. We stayed at the swings for a while, just to make it clear that I wasn't doing anything shady. Then I told my nephew it was bath time, and we left. When we got home, I locked the door. Twice. I don't know what her deal was, but it scared the hell out of me.
That experience at the park left me shaken for days. Even now, when I go out with my nephew, I'm on high alert. I don't think I was overreacting, because when your gut is screaming at you that something's wrong, it usually is. And that brings me to another moment that left a mark. This one from my childhood. I was 13. We were living in a rough part of town. High crime, constant break-ins, and a neighborhood that just felt off. My dad's a truck driver, so he was gone most of the time. And it was just me, my mom, and my brother at home. We had already been robbed before. Once, they left the front door wide open. Another time, my mom opened the laundry room door and the back door slammed shut like someone had been there. That was when we changed all the locks, armed the alarm every night, and tried to stay vigilant. But even with all that, one night still stands out. It was around 1 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I was on my phone in bed when suddenly the doorbell started ringing. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, frantic and loud. My mom, a light sleeper, got up and peered through the pee-hole. I came out of my room just in time to see her standing on her tiptoes, looking out. A man was at our door. She asked what he wanted, and he said, "My car broke down. I need to use your phone." My mom, thinking fast, said, "Sorry, I don't have a phone," which was a lie, of course, but the guy didn't like that answer. He snapped, started shaking the door handle, trying to get in, yelling. That's when I ran to wake up my brother, told him to be quiet, and we both locked ourselves in the bathroom. My mom joined us moments later. We huddled there, whispering, waiting. She was on the phone with 911 the whole time. Minutes felt like hours. Eventually, we heard knocking again. This time, the police. My mom made sure it was them before opening the door. They told us they found the guy down the street. He was playing on his phone. No broken down car, no emergency. And who knows what would have happened if my mom had opened that door. That moment reminded me of how quick thinking, like my mom's calm response, can make all the difference. Sometimes it's not about being tough. It's about being smart. Now fast forward to just last year. I used to spend a lot of time at my best friend's apartment. It had a weird layout. 2 apartments shared a balcony, so each bedroom window looked directly into the neighbor's window across the way. It was maybe 15 feet of space between them, and there were no real barriers. One night, we're watching a movie in the living room when her roommate suddenly bursts in, white as a sheet. "There's a man staring at me through the window," she says. We all run to the back door, crouch down, and look toward the neighboring unit. The lights had been off all weekend. We thought the girls who lived there had gone home. But sure enough, we saw movement through the blinds, then a shadow, then a light flicked on and off. It wasn't one of the girls. We were freaking out. The layout meant that if he stepped out onto the shared balcony, all that stood between us was a glass door. That night, we double-locked everything. The next day, the girls came home and we told them everything. Their faces went pale. No one had been home all weekend. Whoever that man was, he wasn't supposed to be there. They called the building manager, but he didn't really do anything. A few months later, all the girls moved out. That's the thing. Sometimes it's not about a dramatic break-in or a full-blown attack. Sometimes it's just the not knowing that haunts you. Speaking of not knowing, when I was 16, I went on a Euro tour. It was my first time on a plane, first time overseas. We had a pretty big group, around 15 students, a few teachers, including our headmaster. Most days were fully scheduled, but we had pockets of free time to explore the cities. One day in Rome, my friend and I were walking near the hotel. Totally casual, taking pictures, soaking up the vibes. That night, we were eating pizza at a sidewalk restaurant when I popped into a corner shop next door to buy water. I didn't think I needed to bring anyone with me. I mean, the store was right there. As I walked out, this man in a dark coat shoved me up against a light post. He opened his coat wide to block me from view and asked me for my name. Twice. I didn't answer. One of the girls from our group saw what was happening and ran over, grabbing me and pulling me away. I burst into tears, the teachers intervened, the headmaster yelled at him to leave. The guy wandered off, but it wasn't over. A few minutes later, that same man tried to come back. He dodged between people, trying to reach me again. Chaos broke out. Our group tried to shield me, and finally he gave up and hopped into a white car that had been parked nearby. We thought that was the end of it. But that night, after dinner, our group split up to check out restaurants nearby. Later, we were supposed to meet at a bar. When I got to the entrance, 2 people from our group yanked me inside. They whispered, "He's here. Same guy, same white car. And now he's not alone." I was terrified, absolutely frozen. We ended up heading back to the hotel as a full group, no splitting up. We were scheduled to leave early the next morning anyway, thank God. I still don't know who he was or how long he'd been watching me, but I know this. He knew where we were, what hotel we were staying at, and he followed us. That realization has stuck with me ever since. It was a reminder that you can never afford to let your guard down, not even when you think you're safe, not even when you're surrounded by people. And here's the last one I'll share. This happened a few years ago. I was living in a first-floor apartment. My roommate was out one night, and there was a knock at the door. Totally normal, I thought. We were in college. Friends came and went all the time. So I checked the pee-hole, and there it was. An eye. Literally, someone pressed against it, staring back at me. I laughed, thought it was one of our friends pulling a prank. But when I opened the door, it wasn't anyone I recognized. The guy was hyper, strange, launched into some weird pitch about the university, but the whole time he kept peeking past me into the apartment, fidgeting, trying to get a better view. I politely said I wasn't interested, but he wouldn't leave. Finally, I got firm. As I tried to close the door, he put his hand on it and stopped me. He said, "I like Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64 too." That freaked me out. See, my roommate and I had been playing Mario Kart late at night for days, but the console wasn't visible from the front door. The blinds were down. You'd have to be outside, up against our window, watching us play to even know that. And that's when it hit me. He had been watching us. After that night, I never saw him again, but I never felt the same about our apartment. I checked the windows constantly, I kept the blinds closed even tighter, and every night after, I couldn't help but wonder, was he still out there? Maybe nothing ever happened, but maybe something almost did. Either way, always listen to your gut, because sometimes your instincts are the only thing keeping you safe.